Okay, Ms. Denard, thank you so much for
You're very welcome,
interviewing.
Ms. Brown.
I just, in light of what we discussed about this project, could you talk to us a little bit about your background, maybe where you grew up, how you were raised, and how that has shaped you to be the woman that you are today?
Oh, thanks. I will. Grew up in a very small town in a suburb of New York City. And it was a town that immigrants moved to in about 1920 when there was a flu virus in Brooklyn, in New York. And they didn't really have paved streets, and they didn't really have gutters yet. So this flu virus was killing people. And in fact, one of my grandfather's siblings died in that. So they moved out to the country, which was New Jersey. And of course, when I grew up, it wasn't really country at all. But having grandparents on both sides of my family who were immigrants from a very small country, but yet felt very, very different, would even talk about two different races in Ireland, if you can imagine that, that it was a very closed type of community. But I knew that the people that lived across the street, their grandparents were from Poland, and they were the Dusaloviches. And I had the Mullins down the street, they were the Irish Catholics, and we had the Straskos, they were Slovakian. So I could tell those differences, and I could easily say Wojciechowicz or Stanislavski because my father would take me to the Polish church sometimes. So I was very comfortable with these long Polish names or even the long Irish names, right? But for example, all my grandparents spoke with what we called a brogue, an Irish accent. But I had learned that, from birth. So, but if I ever took a friend with me, which I had to do when I was, say, in the 6th grade to go visit my grandfather's sister, who lived in my town, I could understand what she was saying to us easily. But when I'd leave, my friend would say, "Did you understand a word that woman said?" And I'd say, "Well, of course, but other people don't." So that was a way for me to understand that what I was experiencing was different from what my friends were experiencing. So that I began to understand that this was what I began to eventually call a subculture of Irish Catholics and immigrants. And consequently, I've always been very supportive of immigrants to this country, however they get here, because this was something that the Irish did to keep from starving to death, and had to work very hard, when they got here to do that. But for example, my father was very proud to register for the after World War II, in World War II after high school, and very proud to be American. And I think that because we spoke English after a fashion, it was easier for us to assimilate into American society. So that's the one thing. But one of the things that was always stressed, and was really the most important thing, besides telling the truth, was your education. That it was very important to get a good education, and so that you were able to make a good contribution to the world as an adult. I had sisters at school. I went to Catholic schools. They were sisters of St. Francis of Assisi. They were very, very kind people, much, much nicer than my mother and my father. So I've always been grateful to them for that. But they had huge classes. They had, 45 students in an elementary school classroom was not unusual. But they held perfect order, because if that nun ever called home, boy, was there a lot of trouble in our house. And that was true all the way through going to school in New Jersey. My family moved to Florida when I was in the end of my 10th grade year, and it was the first year of desegregation in Florida. Imagine that, from 1954 to 1970. That's how Florida did, all deliberate speed. I was appalled. And the students, I could see, really weren't having a problem with the integration, but it was their parents who were causing the kids to be tense. We had a situation one time in the gym. It was a pep rally before a football game. And I was sitting in the top of the bleachers, and I could see across the gym that somebody had held up a Molotov cocktail. That's a mason jar with a fuse in it. And if you throw it, it'll burst and it will be sprayed glass. It's very, very dangerous. But I had seen a picture of it in the Newark Daily News, so I knew what it looked like. So I saw that thing. I saw the guy put a light on it, and I could see it right across the gym. And I was the first one out of that gym. So the next day, they called my father and me to come in and talk to the principal, thinking that that girl from New Jersey knows what happened. And I had to explain that, no, I didn't know exactly what happened, and I'm new here, and I had nothing to do with it. That was just what I knew was going to happen because I had seen the picture of it. Because we lived very close to race riots in Newark and Plainfield, New Jersey, in 1968. When I graduated from Trinity, from high school, and then I went to Trinity College in Washington, and I got a degree in economics, mainly to be able to get a job when I got out. And I also had a major in English, which was really helpful because what I did for the next 23 years was write about economics and policy analysis. So it worked out pretty well. As it happened, over time, I think as it happens to many people, changes really happened to us in our 40s. And I found myself as a single parent with two very young children. And I really felt like there was a window of time that I had with them, just a short amount of time, and then they were going to grow up and be gone. And I wanted that time. So when I found and saw an ad in the Gazette newspapers for people in careers in math and science to come be math and science teachers, I thought, wow, that's really provocative. And I was tired of kind of fighting the sex stereotypes of what women were supposed to do. Most of the time I worked with other economists and engineers. And most of the time I was the only woman involved. And this is all white people. There were hardly any, there might be some engineers or some economists from India. But other than that, that was what it was. If we ever had a black woman, it was unusual. And I always tried, and I did have occasions to have that once in a while. But it wasn't easy. It was never easy. So when I came to Parkdale High School here in Prince George's County, it was really the first time that I was in a situation where I was the minority and everyone else was a different color. And I was so grateful for Ms. Smith, who could see my consternation and how nervous I was, and just immediately was able to get into the role that she was to play as my administrator, and I could get into the role that I was to play as the teacher. And over time, I began to be more relaxed and to really understand that kids are kids, and adults are adults, and people are people. And really, there's as much difference between any one group of people than there is between two groups of people, that have different skin colors. And I know now in my bones that the differences of skin color are just about melatonin in your skin. It is not about your ability. It is not about how you think. And it's certainly not about anything you can do or will do. And I think that has been the main benefit that I think I have received at Parkdale, and plus all the wonderful people that I've met. And I hope that when I talk to students, that they have a positive view of what they can expect to see when they leave Parkdale High School and they go out into the world and they meet lots of white people and they see the differences, knowing that will they be able to take the view that there's many different kinds of white people as there are different kinds of African Americans or Africans or Hispanics. And I think that's an important thing to learn. And it didn't happen in my life until, when I was 50 years old. Before that, I always believed it to be true, but now I know it. I have experienced it. And that type of experiential education is what we mean when we talk about experiential education. That's the type of experience we mean when we learn.
A question. How do you balance your understanding of different cultures with maybe giving your students prepared for the reality that is outside of Parkdale? Where here there are a lot of, brown-skinned students, and they're not the minority. How do you get them prepared to function in a world where they become the minority?
Well, I think from my perspective, the number one thing is excellence in mathematics. I'm a math teacher, and I know that excellence will rise to the top. And no matter who you are or where you're from, if you can solve the problem, they want you. And I was able to stay employed no matter what, even though I'm a woman, and because I could write. And I could write very well enough for people to want me to write this for them, and I could stay working. If you're not adding value to a situation, you need to change your situation. And as long as we have Parkdale students that go out into the world and they add value, They're by the excellence of their work, by the excellence of their effort, by the attitude that they have, the openness they have to learning something new and to learning about the people around them, hopefully, and the topic that they're studying. I think they'll do very well. I really do. And I hope that their interaction with me has taught them, that we're all the same. We really are all the same.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nard.